Hello everyone. Welcome to our fifth webinar. Thank you to everyone who have participated and been sending us your feedback. So today it's all about parenting, and I'm really excited about today's session because I'm keen myself to learn about parenting, especially from an amazing guest speaker. And even if you don't have children right now, you are children of your parents, and I'm sure there will be a revelation in terms of understanding yourself better. Recently, Teja had the opportunity to present at an international webinar attended by hundreds, and we are humbled by the feedback. We hope we can continue adding value and bringing you thought-provoking ideas. Before we begin, it's our usual housekeeping. Kindly keep your profile on mute. And if you want to say something, kindly use the chat box window so we can make the session very interactive. And if the meeting does time out after 40 minutes, use the same link and join us again. I'll now hand you over to Kalyani.
Can we progress the slides?
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to see you on our fifth webinar. Thank you, Sachin. I completely agree. I'm very excited about today's theme too. Being a parent of two children, I am really eager to understand how I can become more aware and improve my relationship with my kids, myself, and others around me as well. And I also want to understand and uncover what it is about my childhood that drives my behaviors and understanding my own limitations. I've had so many insights as I researched this topic. And the more I read and the more I heard, I knew I needed to learn more. And I reflected on who am I and how I am able to influence my children, my partner, or people around me. So my insights led me to some fundamental questions. And I welcome you now to reflect on these the way I reflected on them. I don't know if I found any answers, but that's what we're here for. So the first question is parenting about the parent or the child? So often I hear parents saying, my child is so naughty or so lazy, or how can I get my child to behave in a certain way? Think about it. Is it really the child or is it you? I don't know yet. Is there such a thing as an ideal parent? From observation, I can tell you that when I see children that I think are ideal children, I instantaneously find myself comparing myself to the parents of those ideal children. But comparing myself as a parent with those parents, is that even fair? I don't know. The third and really thought-provoking question for me was, is loving unconditionally even possible? It is said that the parent-child relationship is about unconditional love. But honestly, I wonder if it is unconditional. Our love for our children, if you think about it, is based on so many expectations we have of them. To perform, to be disciplined, to respect us, to need us, to always be attached to us. But does that mean that we just let it all go and not teach them to aspire? It's a tough one. Plato once quoted that the only impossible task in this world is to raise a child. And now I have a response question for you. So I would encourage you to write the first thing that comes to mind in the chat window. It is about, have you ever paused and reflected on your own behavior? What it is that you advise people at a very subconscious level, like a very backhanded kind of response you have. Not only your children, but people around you, your partner, friends. Is there something that you constantly advise people or tell people? And have you ever reflected on, is that something you received from your parents and it's so embedded in your subconscious? I'd love to hear if anyone has observed their own behavior and would like to comment. Anyone? Dream big. Yeah. I'd be really excited if you said that to me. Now maybe. I'm not sure if my parents told me that at a young age, I would quite comprehend what that means for me to do. What do you think, Jayanti?
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think through my parenting influences, I've always felt like, uh, I mean, I think our parents were parents who were generally content with us, more or less. And I think I carried the feeling of content more than the feeling of dreaming big. And it takes a lot of deconditioning, if that's the right word, to separate my thoughts from their thoughts. And I remember when I was coming to Australia, my father said to me that, "Oh, he said it's a compliment and it's in a surprising, pleasant way that I'm really proud of you and glad. I never thought this would happen, that you would go to Australia to do a PhD." Oh, thanks, Dad. But it's really cool that we carry this kind of conditioning with us.
Yeah, so I've got another response. Be grateful in everything, for everything in life, and always be a better version of yourself and be kind. That's really nice. Yeah. So I think the questions, kids pick up things from person whom they have impressed from. Yeah, I agree. And it's not even so much the words. I mean, in my view, it's more the actions. It's more the role model behavior that they see. And I'm going to pass it to Jayanti, and we'll have our amazing guest speaker give us some insights into those questions that are raised. Over to you, Jayanti.
Thanks, Kalyani. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all again. Today, I'm really, really excited because I'm going to introduce you to Mary. Mary has been my therapist for the last 2 years, more than 2 years. And it's an honor that I get to share this amazing privilege of speaking to her, to all of you, not just me in the therapy session. So thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Computers and me don't do well. It's the new generation thing.
You're also a new generation thing, so it's fine. So Mary, I'd like to dive straight in, and I think we can all ask you some questions about parenting, about our own childhood and reflecting on it. But before we get started, I want to ask you something. So 2.5 years ago, when I first came to you for a therapy session, the first thing that you asked me to do was to go back home. And I remember my primary problem was that I had a lot of self-esteem issues and we wanted to work on those. And the first day you gave me some homework. And the homework was to go back and think about what had happened to me from the age of 3 to 10 years. And I think a lot of us always know this is a cliche thing. You go to therapy, you talk about your childhood, and lots of people think about, why do I need to do that? It happened so long ago. I probably don't even speak to my parents anymore. And does it really have an impact on my life, in my dating life, and these small things? But so that's the first thing that we uncover in a therapy session. And why is that? Why is it so important?
I guess so. Our memories generally begin at the age of 3, and there are some who tell me that it begins at 2, but generally speaking, they begin at 3. And what happens then is so important. Actually, I believe, even though I talked about memories from the age of 3, I think the minute you conceive your child, you're already a parent, because what happens there is that in vitro, if the mother is unwell mentally, then that child is going to have an impact. So it's actually immediately upon conception, you become a parent, a mother. So yes, but we don't always remember, I guess, what we're doing in the womb, do we? However, there has been research now, like up-to-date research showing that the impact of the baby in vitro and all the rest of it, like, you know, you get people who, if the husband is beating the wife, then the baby inside is going to be affected by that already. So when the baby's born, it's already born, slightly defective right from there. So I guess when I said the age of 3, I meant it's really important. Our developmental years are usually from 3 to about, I don't know, not even 10 really. It's more than that now, Janthi. So it's 3 till about 18, 19. I mean, our brains don't stop growing till we're about 28 years old, I think it is. So lots happens in that time. And our early years are so critical because we're already pre-wired with some very specific emotional needs. So now with loads of scientific research, we now know without a doubt that in order to grow and thrive as an adult, children must feel loved and emotionally attached to their parents. Really important. When I say attachment, do you know what I mean?
I'm not sure. I think there's like lots of attachments, right?
Yeah, so being emotionally attached to your parent is really, really critical. But what that looks like is not just, I guess, what we say to our child, but it's also what we give to our children. So hugging is really important. Touch, so important, especially with boys, because boys, you know, they don't learn about touch really early on. They think boys don't do that. It's a pissweak girl thing to do, but it's not. You know, and boys don't talk about their feelings. So yeah, really, really important. The one thing I did, and I'll talk a little about my own parenting, I suppose, because it fits in, is that learning to listen to your children, learning to, touching your children, because if you give love, you're sure as hell going to receive it back. Yeah, I see lots of nodding. It's good. So it's just so important, and crucial actually, I would say. So the subtle parental failure happens though, far and wide. So there is no such thing, I believe, as a perfect parent. We can be the best of ourselves and we can learn to be better and learn from our mistakes and learn from other people as well. But I don't think there is such a thing as perfect parenting. I mean, if there is one, let me know, because I'd like to know that person.
I think we're all on this journey, and as a non-parent, but as somebody who reflects on my childhood regularly, I really think that we need to go back and evaluate what happened in our childhood so often. The other thing I was thinking about is I think I was, at some point of time, I was loved too much. I don't know if that's a real thing. Is it possible to love someone too much? So it's always difficult to strike this balance, right, between being an assertive parent and being a loving parent. And then how does one take those decisions on daily basis, and how does one then strike that balance? Because we're all different, right?
Yeah, we are all different. I mean, the world wouldn't be a fun place to be in if we were all the same. And I think all parenting is different as well. And it's a lot of the time it's culturally based. So it really depends. Parenting to me might be different to parenting to you, might be different to parenting to someone in China or someone in Australia or someone in India, someone in a Muslim country. It's all very different. And so what is ideal in one country might not be ideal in another country. We've got to look at those cultural values as well. And when we look at striking a balance. So balance means, so when you say that about balance, are you talking about just generally speaking?
Yes, generally speaking, on a day-to-day basis, where you decide whether to be assertive and ask the child not to do a certain thing, or be empathetic and kind, validate their emotions. So there's a balance between those two things, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, so here are some tips, I guess. So you talked before, Kalyani, about loving a child unconditionally and what that means and whether it's a possibility. So this kind of slides into there. So I've also got love your child unconditionally. But by doing that, this is how you love your child unconditionally. You hug them regularly, daily if possible, not just a quick pat on the back, which I see a lot of parents do because they're not comfortable with touch. So they just like touch their child like that. And a real hug is important, showing that you truly mean it as well. You're not just doing it because you have to. So being mindful when you're giving that hug is a top tip. Telling your child that you love them. So not just, love you, but actually looking them in the eye and saying, I really love you. I love you so much. You've been so wonderful today. Or if they've done something good, you say you praise and reward your child. But you look them in the eye and do that because your body language is so important. If you're going like this, oh yeah, I love you, darling. Yeah, where's that toy? That your child is not going to hear that. They're going to hear, where's that toy? They're not going to hear, I love you, because you're not looking at them. So, yep. So when you're praising and rewarding your child, look at them and do it that way. You can reward your children in many different ways. You can buy them gifts. So looking at the 5 love languages as well is important. So what is your child's love language? Or what love language are they developing? What can you see are their needs? So some people like gifts, other people like words, some people like acts of kindness, some people like hugs. So it really is up to, and you'll work your child out because you're the best person to do that. So if my child, like Oliver, my son, he doesn't like hugs. So he'd rather me do something else for him, like help clean his room or do an activity with him. But he's not big on hugging. My other son, though, is the complete opposite. And he is not interested in gifts or anything. He'd much rather me hug him. Like he's just always like kind of coming and hugging me and stuff. So different again. So you've got to look at what your child wants and needs. So listen to what your child is saying, because what they have to say is important. Often as parents, we think, oh, he's only 5. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But they actually do. They know a lot more than we think they do. I mean, surely when you were a kid, you probably thought your parents didn't know that you knew. There's this story, I have a client who says to me, I knew my mum and was having an affair. And she said, and she'd bring the guy to the house and everything and pretend like they were friends. But this girl always knew that something wasn't quite right. So yes, kids know more than we think they know. And we often disregard that. And yeah, so we really need to pay attention to what they're saying. Babies cry. They need food, right? They need a cuddle. So yeah, observing how your child is acting or expressing themselves. So their body language. They might be saying everything's fine, but they're just slouched in the corner, or they're spending a long time in their bedroom, or they're going out with their friends and they don't come home. There's so many things to parenting. And I was talking to Jayanthi today. I said, you've got too many questions for me, because I could go on all day about this topic, because it's very important. Because what happens is our parenting then makes us the adults that we become. And that can mean a whole range of different things. Anyway, I'll get back to my tips again because I'm going somewhere else. Okay, so another thing, do not hit your child as punishment. Instead, explain there are consequences for their poor behavior. So hitting your child only creates fear. And to be honest, that's just your frustration when you're hitting your child. You need to go away and yell at the wall or punch a punching bag or something. But don't hit your child, because all you're doing is projecting your stuff onto your child. Do people agree with that?
Definitely. I definitely agree. And that's exactly where, because my mom has asked you a question in the chat, and I think that sort of like answers it a little bit.
Yeah.
How does loving unconditionally and disciplining get balanced?
Okay, I'm about to get onto that.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things was, another thing is avoiding negative emotional reactions such as anger, sarcasm, and ridicule. Don't compare siblings. Very dangerous, really dangerous. Children need positive attention. So mollycoddling or overprotective parenting doesn't work either, because children need to learn how to navigate their way in the world, and we're their teachers. The people around them are their teachers. And as parents, we need to take that role on, the teaching role, education role. So striking the balance, discipline, it's about, not about hitting, but it's about consequences for poor behavior. So that's how you balance it out. I don't know, you might want to take away their Xbox for the night, or if they've been rude to you, because respect is really important too. So I would respect my child and they would respect me back. And I think that's how you strike the balance, to be honest. It's really just about respect. You respect your child and they will respect you back. You love your child, they will love you back. You beat your child, they will lose respect for you. You torture your child, they will lose respect for you. You know, you emotionally neglect your child, they will lose respect for you. And then that goes on to, you know, form things like developmental trauma and complex trauma, which is a whole different kettle of fish. So you don't have to hit your child, but you can, you know, say to them like, okay, so how to balance is setting rules in the beginning, right from the start. Do you think child is active? What do you mean by, do you think child inside the parents should be active?
And I think they mean that in the sense that there's a child within all of us, right? We're bubbly children, you know, maybe that aspect of us be alive, I don't know, or active.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be active when you're playing with your child. You know, you become that child inside of you. Like you might be sitting down playing some Barbie dolls and all of a sudden you're actually playing. And it's actually quite nice to do that, because you can connect then with your child on that level by bringing yourself down to that level, meaning bringing the child part of you out. So this gets very complicating here now. I'm talking about parts, because we all have one brain, different parts. So at times you're going to see yourself behaving like a child, and there's nothing wrong with that. At times you might see yourself behaving like a child in a negative way by throwing tantrums as an adult, but it's actually not the adult who's doing that. It's actually the child part that's doing it, if that makes sense. This is a whole different webinar.
Yeah, I would love to hear you speak more about parts and part therapy also. But can you just explain to us in like a line what part therapy is? Because I think a lot of people will be interested to hear what part therapy is.
Okay, so parts work is structural dissociation. So we all have one brain in different parts. So we may, in terms of childhood stuff, if you've had trauma from the age of 3 or from the age of 0 and beyond, a part of you may still be stuck as a child, and that part may not have grown. So it may still be stuck in trauma time. So when we talk about parts therapy, we talk about growing that child up so they become an adult and they integrate into the adult. So this is not about having different personalities. This is not dissociative identity disorder, but this is, we all have parts. So there's a part of you that goes to work. There's a part of you that's a parent. There's a part of you that, I don't know, that's a psychologist, or a part of you that is a parent or a child. Like when you're with your parents, you're different. Somehow, sometimes kids will become kids again when they're grown up, but they're sitting in front of their parents, and their grandchildren are running around, but they're still behaving like a child.
I have another question as well. Can I ask?
Yes.
So I think sometimes parents are also kind of in denial when their children are growing up. You always want to treat them like a child, especially when they're in their teens. I mean, from my own experience, I find that I need to first acknowledge that my child is now grown up, and I need to meet her at that level and not treat her like she's still little. Although, as much as a parent, I would like my kids to still be little and still depend on me, but I need to meet her at that level. So do you have any tips on how we can do that?
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you say that's a really important question, actually, Kalyani. When you're, I guess it's mindfulness, really, at the end of the day. So, you know, looking at your child, not seeing them as a little tiny little toddler, but seeing them as being who they actually are, looking at them, they've grown up, they are all going to grow up, they're not going to get smaller, they're going to get bigger. So it's about reflecting on like spending time reflecting on yourself and your parenting. And your children are the ones that are going to tell you that anyway, because they'll tell you, Mum, stop treating me like a baby.
Yes.
They will tell you that. And when they start telling you that you listen to that. You know? But then you also might have the child who is still a child and they're saying, stop treating me like a baby. But they might be like 4 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally get it. Yeah.
So it's just your own reflection, really, and just doing that regularly is important.
Yeah.
So you're not letting time go by, and if you just let time go by, then you're not actually in the moment, are you? Does that answer?
Another question. Yeah, that answers it. Yeah. Another question is, I think because when the two partners are parenting as well, because they have quite different childhood, it's how do you better do a good job as a team of both parents, and your parenting style can be quite different based on how you were parented by your parents, obviously.
Yeah. Another important question, because yes, we all have different backgrounds. So how I parent might be different to how my husband parents, but and it can cause a lot of chaos and conflict within the relationship and within the family, if you don't actually resolve that issue. So you can't parent too differently. You've got to be on the same page. So otherwise, what happens then is your child then starts to manipulate you, and they will then go to that parent because that parent's I can get away with it, because children are they're going to test you your whole life. Even when you're growing up, they still test you, right? So yeah, it's about talking to your partner and agreeing on how you're going to parent. You're always going to have a slight imbalance. There's no perfect parenting. But when you start to see these things happen, that's when you go away, take yourselves away, talk about what's happened and how you can resolve that together as a team. So that you're not splitting parenting.
There's another really nice question for you, especially from an Indian perspective. This is from my mom, and she's asking, being a permissive parent, do you spoil children? And I think this is a very classic belief in India that don't love them too much, you're going to spoil them. And that's why if they're crying, you would be like, don't cry, you're not validating their feelings, you're being permissive. Does that mean you're spoiling them?
So when you say don't cry, I don't really understand the question, sorry.
The question is, if you're too permissive as a parent, are you spoiling the children if you let them do anything?
Do what they want.
Mm.
Yeah, you it's not a good idea to let them do what they want, because I think it's important. You got to have boundaries, and you've got to know in your own mind where you're setting those boundaries. So for you, for one person is going to be different to the other person, right? There are some parents who are very free with their kids and, go play in the mud, go and mess your hair, who cares, right? Do whatever you want. But there has to be a limit to all of that too, because you're there to look after them. That's why you became a parent in the first place. Because you're there to help them grow as young people into adulthood. So I think if you let them get away with everything, they start to learn in the big wide world that things are really, really tough, and they get stuck when they become adults because they don't know. They think it's fine if I do whatever I want. So you go to work? No, I'll just leave early. Mum said I could. Do you know what I mean? Like you
Yes.
start to have a sense of entitlement and think that I can do whatever I want, and that's really awful for anyone, because you're going to go out in the world and you're going to think, oh, I can have a relationship with whoever I want because I'm perfect.
That's when the disappointment will really hit you hard, I guess.
Really hard. And then you look back and think, oh, I gave you everything you wanted, you know, all the love in the world, all the toys in the world, everything you wanted, and all of a sudden I've got nothing.
I
How
think
awful would that be for that?
Yeah, I've also observed, sorry to interrupt you, Mary. I've also observed that sometimes, especially, I mean, this is between siblings. So the younger child sometimes tends to, oh, okay, you can have it, you can do it. It's maybe when the parents' patience levels are there, or because the young child is like the baby, and then they tend to, because they are so good at getting all the attention, getting things easy, and when they go out and make friends at school, and they see that things don't always necessarily go their way, it really blows their confidence.
Yes. And then they end up going, well, what was all that about, you know? And they get confused and they end up in therapy. I get to see them.
Which is great, by the way. I feel like you just told the story of my life.
And there's another question on that, whether the elder kid can be a parent to the younger one if the maturity levels are different.
Okay, so if they're a lot older, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Look, in some families this happens, like when some people have 13 kids. And so the parents are then, like, you know, you've got a really old sibling who's 18 and a young baby. So sometimes that does happen as a natural course anyway. Whether it's a great thing or not, look, I don't really know. I think it does happen though, and we can't pretend it doesn't. I think that just happens, and I don't really see there's anything too wrong with it, as long as the parent is still in charge. Like, you know, the little kid might need their bottom washed, and that's a parenting thing, but you might have an elder sibling who can actually do that to help the mother out. You know, so it becomes more of a teamwork. But, you know, when it comes to the hard and fast rules, then it's the parent who does that, who makes those rules, not the older sibling. However, if the parent then goes on, I don't know, goes overseas with the partner for a honeymoon, or like new honeymoon or whatever, like revamping their love life or whatever, then they might leave the 18-year-old at home. And then that 18-year-old will resume the role of parent. That answers the question.
Mary, I have one last question for you, which I don't know how long this might go on, because it's a really interesting thing, and some other people might be interested in this who are non-parents, and if they are single, not married, dating. I want to ask you about the impact of our parenting styles on our dating, because I know that I've seen this pattern in me, and I've seen this pattern in many people, that if they had abandonment issues in their childhood, they're going to date people who will abandon them, or they will abandon people. And so how can we reflect on this, and what can we do about this?
Okay, so abandonment, once again, is a very big topic, but here are the key factors in terms of abandonment. So the aftermath of abandonment, I call it. So trusting others becomes difficult. So when your parent abandons you, whether it be knowingly, unknowingly, whether it be emotional abandonment or physical abandonment, he or she is violating your most basic human need, which is to have parents who value and enjoy you. So if the one who is meant to love and care for you the most in this world leaves you, it becomes very difficult to believe that anyone and everyone who becomes important to you will not do the same. So you start to have big trust issues. You may end up living your life constantly on guard, so hypervigilant. for the possibility of just waiting to be rejected or abandoned again from a partner, from a friend, from a loved one. So this holds people back from forming rich, deep, trusting relationships. So that's the first one. The second one is self-worth, self-esteem. So, and lack of self-compassion as well. So how could my own parent leave me? The abandoned child might wonder. Being left by the one who brought you into the world naturally makes you wonder what's wrong with you. Okay, the abandoned child is set up to never feel good enough, deeply, painfully, or he or she feels unworthy of true love and commitment. So unhealthy and toxic relationships are then formed. Next. Okay, so some of the common negative beliefs that people have that have had abandonment issues are: I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve, I don't trust anyone, I'm not worthwhile, I'm worthless. Okay, so those are some really common tips. Common things that happen, sorry. And the common negative beliefs as well. Guilt and shame is another one. So all abandoned children are deeply mystified about why their parents left them, why their parents didn't pay attention to them. So many struggle with the fact that there is no good explanation, because let's face it, apart from death, there's no good reason for a parent to leave a child. In the absence of a logical explanation, the child naturally tends to blame herself or himself, which then sets up a pattern of feeling deeply responsible for her parents' choice to leave her or him. So the abandoned child often grows up to struggle with guilt and shame. So that's in a nutshell.
And what can we do to deal with this? For example, I don't want to keep dating. If my parent was unavailable to me in my childhood, I don't want to keep dating men who are unavailable. But I will find myself stuck in that pattern. And how can we overcome this?
Okay, so in a nutshell, again, I don't know if you've heard of EMDR therapy, but what that stands for is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So we would use parts work, so structural dissociation, and we would then process those memories with the child that was abandoned present when we're processing those memories. So that's, in a nutshell, it's bilateral stimulation of the brain, taking yourself back in time and healing that part so it integrates into the adult. So EMDR has been proven effective in treating many types of trauma. A person who's been abandoned in the past may be carrying trauma with them, usually they are, and this helps reduce the symptoms of that trauma, which then helps them move and engage in healthy relationships in the future. It's a work in progress.
We all are.
Yes.
I think it all begins by acknowledging that we need to progress, and we need that. If we constantly, try to think that, oh well, it's not a big deal, we can deal with it, or oh, I'm perfect, I don't need anything else. Both of these standpoints are actually stopping you from progressing. That's what I believe in, at least.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I find a lot of people come into therapy, and I don't know if I've said this to Jayanti or not, but she has a good relationship with her mum anyway. But this happens all the time with childhood trauma. People come into the therapy room, they don't want to talk about nothing happened in my childhood. Everything was great. So I say to them, look, like, remember, you're here. This is a safe place. You need to be able to leave your guilt here. Because, as parents, we don't always intend to hurt our children either. We don't intend on doing that. Most of the time we don't intend, but we make mistakes. Parents make mistakes, but they can learn from them. But the thing is, the damage may have already been done to that child. Okay, so it's important for anyone coming to therapy to remember that it's okay to be open about what happened in your childhood. because it's not, your parents can't hear you in here in this therapy room. Right? They can't hear you. This is about you getting better and healthier, and they may never know. You may never have to go and address them, you know? And sometimes it's not necessary. Like people talk about, you know, I need to confront my parents. I need to do, that's the only way I'm going to get healing. That's actually not true.
Mm.
It actually causes a lot more damage by doing that. It's about choosing when to be assertive. And sometimes you don't need to do that. You can just heal yourself.
There's another last question. We can just tackle that and then we'll move on. Would you say being a really flexible parent can be a con sometimes?
You can't. What do you mean? What does that mean? Like
Like a bad thing.
a bad thing? I don't think it's a con at all. I think if you do all those things, like you listen to your child, you know, you change, you may have to change the way you parent sometimes. You may have to go and see like a parenting specialist or a psychologist because you may not be doing it well. You know, so it's about learning, and you're going to change and you're going to grow. But if you're going to just remain static and not flexible and dynamic, then I think, you know, you're really a lost cause.
All right.
You mean that lost cause?
I like that. I think that's what it is. I'm glad you're so open about it.
I am. That's my issue sometimes. It's like, bleh.
Okay, do we want to move on to the next section? And if there's any questions for Mary, you can leave them in the chat window still, and she can answer them after we're done with the next exercise, or she can, if there's time afterwards. And for everyone who's here, who wants to know more about EMDR therapy, I'm always talking about it, so you can just talk to me. And I'm happy to, Mary is already, she owes me a huge commission now because of this, but but she is a practicing therapist in Brisbane. So if you're in Brisbane or anywhere in I think you do online EMDR as well now.
Yeah, I am. I'm doing it internationally now as well. Yeah, and it works well.
Yeah. So if you want to come up and do some EMDR, it works like magic. It has changed my life. That's still an understatement if I said that, but yes, I'm a huge advocate of EMDR myself. So I'm always happy to talk about it. And Mary, obviously, you owe me a huge commission. So.
Oh, yeah, okay. I also wanted to say, I did a few slides for this today. So if anyone wants a copy of that, I'm happy to share that too.
Okay, amazing.
That'll be great, yeah.
Okay, Kalyani.
All right. Thank you, Mary. That was very insightful. We could listen to you all day, honestly.
All over the place.
It's really good. And we'd love to have your slides as well. Thank you once again. We're now going to move into a bit of an interactive activity. So I'm going to invite Dr. Naina Mendi. She was the guest speaker at our last webinar. And she will be taking you through an exercise. So either you can type your responses in the chat window, or you can use your pen and notebook to write your responses. Over to you, Dr. Naina Mendi. You're on mute. You'll have to unmute.
Hello, everybody. It's very nice being here and listening to Mary. Wonderful answers and wonderful questions also, because there's so many doubts. I have two grown-up kids, adult kids, but still as a parent, I have questions on my parenting. So here is one small exercise, which is a everyday kind of situation. I'm just posing one scenario in front of you, and there are some options given in terms of what would be your, what would be the appropriate response in this situation as per whatever you think is the best appropriate response to this. Because I'm highlighting certain things which are very important as a backdrop here. See, I'll just narrate you the scenario. This is a scenario like your daughter has won a prize in singing competition, and she calls you on mobile and gives you this news. You say nothing that time. You come home. She's very highly in a celebrating mood. She's celebrating with her friends that she has got that prize, and she's dancing, jumping all over the house. But the backdrop is she is in standard 12. She's in class 12, and you are focusing on her professional qualification, looking forward to that, because after this 12th exam she will be taking that professional course. If she does well, she will go to the desired professional course and in a desired institution. You have high expectations of her, from her, and this is mid-January, and her final exams are in last week of February. So this is the backdrop, which is very much alive on your mind, because you are a very responsible parent. So in this scenario, on her celebration, you see her celebrating there, and then these are possible responses which I have just given here. You can also see in the slide probably the different reactions and the scenarios. Kalyani, can we have the slide?
The slide is already up.
Yeah.
Can everyone see the slide?
Yeah.
Give me a thumbs up if you can.
Yeah.
So in the chat window, just type the number for the kind of response that you would.
Yeah, I'll also tell you the responses in terms of verbal responses or description. What you do is that you say, all this is okay, but remember February is not far off. This is one response from a responsible parent. You go straight to your room, no reaction. You give a slight smile without saying anything. You complain to your spouse or partner and say that, see, things are not good. See, these things are going out of control while the exam is on, is just approaching, and then she is celebrating. You approach your daughter, pat her, wish her congratulations, look at her prize and feel proud of her. One response could be that you are very much upset with her celebration at this point of time, and you bring all her study books and throw these in front of her to remind her that, see, what are you doing? So you can just see these reactions and rate them in terms of appropriateness according to you, as to best appropriate to least appropriate. And the choice is like, whatever you do is, there is nothing right or wrong about it. This is what the first thought which comes to me. Great. These are spontaneous responses.
Interesting responses received.
Yeah.
Can I have a response aside from all of this?
Yeah.
I think I would want to say that, tell her that I'm really proud of her. And I would remind her that if she's capable of achieving that in one aspect of her life, she's also very capable of doing really well in other areas of her life. And she's an incredible person. She's confident, and I'm sure that she's capable of doing it all.
Yeah. I
I
think
think that's my over-optimistic response.
I think Mary would let us know, like, what according to her is the, the best or the appropriate, most appropriate response.
I would have said number 1 and then number 3.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I agree with what Jayanti said as well. I think that's very valuable and
Right.
appropriate.
Mhm.
Looks like I'm ready for parenting.
You can get a dog first.
Yeah, I'm trying out with my cat, learning to be assertive.
I think, I mean, I like the aspect of, I would congratulate and celebrate, but being a parent of a 15-year-old who's in year 10, I would still look at the practical side and go, oh my God, year 12.
See, I have a slightly different view on this. I feel that empathy is a very important aspect of parenting, because at that moment the child is into the mood of celebration. So if I imagine myself in that place today for this moment, I am just enjoying that moment, and I would like everybody to do that. That is like, I am validating. If I also join her in that enjoyment, I'm validating her feeling, and later on I can give this, that this is all okay, but that not at that moment. If suppose I put myself in that
100%.
and somebody says this is all okay, it is invalidating my joy of achieving that reward. So at that moment especially, I feel that it's appropriate that you pat her, you say congratulations, and feel proud of her. Maybe all other things can come later. And
The
of
only
course,
thing
there
I
are
would do is I probably wouldn't do the pat. I would probably give her a really big cuddle. But I hear you, Nayana. Like, that is so important, because otherwise you lose that moment. You lose the excitement, and you want to share that with your child.
right. Yeah. So thank you, Kalyani.
Great. Thank you thank you to you for conducting this scenario empathy example. And thank you everyone for being transparent and participating with vigor, and it was really fun. So I'm going to move on to the next exercise, which is a meditation. So I think after we've had the insights from Mary and that empathy reflection exercise, I think we're ready to move on to the meditation exercise. And this is a very simple meditation. It's just embrace it with an open mind, I would say. I'm going to guide you through it, make you relax your body and mind to start with, and then just take you through this exercise of forgiving your parents. And when I guide you through it, you will be able to easily relate, I hope. So take a comfortable seating position, everyone. Take a deep breath. I'll now count down from 10 to 1. And with each descending number, you'll feel yourself being more and more relaxed. Starting from your head down to your toes. 10, 9, 8. Take another deep breath. Feel your shoulders relaxing, your diaphragm relaxing. 7, 6, 5. Feel the relaxation flowing gently downwards towards your toes. 4, 3. Another deep breath. 2, 1. Your body is now in a relaxed state. Take a few more deep breaths and just focus on the breath coming in and going out. And as you do so, you will feel more and more relaxed. Just a couple of breaths. Your mind is now at a relaxed state too. In this relaxed state of mind, bring to mind both of your parents, irrespective of them being alive or not. Now imagine them standing in front of you. Take a deep breath. Acknowledge their presence. Just look at them both peacefully from head to toe. Notice the soft smile on their face as they're looking at you. Acknowledge that as parents, they have tried to give you whatever best they could, while not being able to fulfill some expectation of yours. That's okay. Now, very lovingly convey your gratefulness for whatever best they could do for you. Take a deep breath and relax. Continue gazing at them with love and compassion. Now forgiving them for what they could not do for you. You may hug them to express both your gratitude and forgiveness. Just feel that release of emotion. Feel the energy vibrating at a higher level now. Take another deep breath and just let it go. Dwell in this energy for a few more breaths. And now see their image slowly fading away. You're now on your own in a peaceful, calm location. Take a couple of breaths to embrace this moment of peace. Feel the release. Feel reassured with yourself. Feeling a bit more liberated. Now I'm slowly going to count from 1 to 5. At the count of 5, you will slowly come out of the meditation, feeling calmer, happier with yourself, more relaxed, ready to embrace life again. 1, 2, 3. Another deep breath. 4, 5. You may open your eyes, feeling awake and more relaxed. I hope that meditation was helpful.
I need you to record your voice and put it on my website. I'm not joking.
When I listen to my own voice, Mary, I feel, oh, I don't like that voice.
It's actually really soothing. You did that so
Thank you,
well.
Mary. Thank you, Mary. Would anyone like to share in the chat window if that struck a chord with them, or what did they feel about it? Did they find it beneficial?
While people are sharing, I'll just share what I felt. I think it's often it's so hard to forgive our parents when we are young, as 3 or 4 years old, or I don't know, in that particular age. But it's so important for us to grow up and forgive them, go back and forgive them. Because now we're old, right? We're capable of being empathetic adults. So why not take advantage of that and forgive our parents? You know, for whatever they've done, even if largely we feel like we've had good parenting, but
I guess in response to that, I just want to also like say something as a psychologist here, for any future webinars that you do if I'm not present or whatever, but just check in with people because you may have an audience where there's been sexual assault by a parent. So that forgiveness exercise wouldn't work with that. So it's just I guess I'm just like, you know, just I know in this group it's fine, but if you're going to have a really big group, you might want to make sure that you have some kind of questionnaire before, and just making sure that there's no really big trauma, because you don't want any triggers during that, because it was brilliant meditation, but if someone's traumatized, and that could really trigger them, their post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, Mary, thanks. That's really important advice. Yeah, I think as we do more and more of these and have varied audiences, and especially people that we may not know, then yeah, I agree. We'll have to adopt that approach. Yeah.
This will obviously get bigger.
oh, thank you.
Because I've got one of my supervisors. She doesn't do EMDR, but she is very spiritual. Dr. Brooklyn Storm. So I was just, if you ever wanted her to be a guest, she's also willing to be. She can
That's
talk
amazing.
about spirituality.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks a lot.
I said I would talk about her today. So. She's willing to.
Perfect. That's amazing.
Before I hand over to Jayanti for the summary, I just want to make one statement, especially I think in terms of, I think this is to do with Asian heritage maybe, or growing up in India. It's often we've been conditioned to see, oh, parents are God, you got to respect elders, got to respect parents. And I think where it really becomes challenging for someone as a child to digest is if they see their parents acting against the norm, it's a very big conflict. So this idea of trying to absorb the parent's action versus being told that the parent is God and you can't be ever saying anything negative or anything other than respect for your parents is completely wrong. I think this is where fundamentally very difficult. I'd rather have, and I think I'm lucky that my parents are quite open and they would say, I'm human and I make mistakes and I'm open to feedback, has so much advantage for Jayanti and myself to build a much more robust relationship.
But most Asian parents are not like that. And I will say most.
Yeah.
It's quite rare. Like this stuff needs to be all over Malaysia, where I'm from, all over India, all over these Asian countries. Like a girl came into me the other day from China and she said, oh, I'm too black, I can't go home. I was like, what do you mean? You're white as anything. I'm like, she's like, no, I have to be fair. My parents won't like this. I'm seen as an outcast. It's like even your physical being is being targeted by parents.
Very much so, yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for your comments as well. And we can move on to the summary. Jayanti, would you like to go through a summary of today's session?
Sure. I think it was super amazing. It was a great session. It was great learning for all of us. The key takeaway points I think would be, first of all, is awareness is super important. Awareness about our own childhood. And as much as we think this is a cliche of coming to therapy and thinking that, oh, I'm going to have to talk about my childhood, I don't want to talk about that. But I think it's the mold that shapes us. It's what makes us who we are, what happened in our childhood. So it's really important to be aware of our childhood and reflect on it from time to time. Um, and it has a large subconscious impact on it. I did not even know until you told me, Mary, that it's like right from the time we are conceived, we're in the womb, and we carry our trauma from like trauma, or maybe even like the good things, all the good and bad things that happen to us. We carry those things along with us all along our life. So it's a lot of it is subconscious that we're not even aware of. Um, but I'm sure we can consciously do lots of work on it. And you shared with us about parts therapy and EMDR therapy. And I think that's really important for people to know that there are tools available for us that we can consciously use to change this subconscious conditioning. And forgiveness is really important. Um, as adults, we are 100% capable of being empathetic and forgiving our parents, and forgiving ourselves as parents also. So I think forgiveness is really important. And there's the next slide is the 10 commandments of parenting, which we used to have it on our textbook of our school textbook. And when we were reflecting on it, we thought this is such a cool thing, you know. In school it was just at the back of the notebooks. We never really paid attention, but we thought we should share that. So that's on the next slide, Sachin. And if you want, you can take a picture of it if you like it. And Mary, would you like to add something to it? Or would you like to leave us with some key points to think about? Give us some homework.
Yeah, well, I think this is beautiful. I'm just reading it. I think it's really, really lovely. Is it a school book or something?
Yes, it was at the back of our school notebook.
In India?
Yes.
Wow.
Sounds unbelievable.
It's a lot of lip service, unfortunately, in India, and the conditioning is such that you think, who cares about these things? I don't really want to pay attention to it. And moving out of India, I think opened my eyes a lot more in terms of what there was and what I could take away from it.
Yeah. No, but it is lovely. I like it. Can you send it to me? I'd like a copy of that.
Sure.
But I guess just in passing words, I guess, you know, like be kind to yourselves. If you're parents, if you're not parents, and you have parents, we all have parents, obviously. They might be alive, they might not be alive, but you know, like forgiveness is one thing, and I think forgiveness is really important. But I think self-compassion is the key here, like having compassion for yourself so you can actually do better and improve yourself so that everybody around you will also improve, if that makes sense. It's the law of attraction stuff, you know. You love yourself, you have compassion for yourself, not, you know, the grandiosity, I mean compassion. And that then flows into everybody else in the community. Mm-hmm. Everybody that you touch will have that flow.
That's beautiful.
So continue to, you know, take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves.
That's beautiful.
Nobody's perfect.
Thank you, Mary. That was a great takeaway. Can we go to the handy references now? Yep. So, and feel free to take a picture if you like. there's some Instagram handles that I researched. I really like all of them, actually. I'm a fan.
Oh, he's amazing.
Oh, she's amazing. Absolutely.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Most of my research for today was based on her and her and her. Her TED talk is really great, and her interview on impact theory, I thought those were particularly the two highlights that I really liked. And then there's two Mind Valley, like really short but very amazing content in terms of how to raise your kids to lead extraordinary lives by John Butcher, and then the 6 most Google parenting queries by Jim Quick. Jim Quick is another person that I really, really love. Very authentic and very compelling story of himself as a teenager as well. So that's good. And then there's a couple of books there. And the last one is those who are from India or grew up in India, they probably know there was this Bollywood, very, very short stardom life, but she's into mindfulness now, and she's written a book, Building a Happy Family, Rageshwari Lumba Swarup, and her Instagram is pretty good as well. So these are some of our recommendations. Would you like to add anything, Jen?
No, I think that's it. Most of it is Dr. Shefali, who's amazing. Everyone knows her, and she's a wonderful person. She's been on Oprah a few times, I think, and the impact theory interview was something I particularly enjoyed of hers. Very something to reflect about, even in a spiritual sense. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much.
You guys.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Our Instagram channel, by the way, for Mary to know also. And we're posting some interesting stuff on it. Yeah. So
Yes, thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jayanti. Thank you, Kalani. Thank you, Mary. Thank you and everybody for joining. And as usual, we will record this and we will upload it on our YouTube channel, which is also Teja Discover Radiant, and you can follow us
as well. Thank you, everyone, once again, and we can't wait to bring the next session, which is probably likely going to be end of July. So stay tuned and watch this space for the next announcement.
Right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.